County Water District Board of Directors to order. Could you call the roll, please, John?
Present.
Here.
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 Here, thank you very much. And Director Feldman, could you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Amen.
Fall down.
What?
That's why I'm here.
Oh, please.
Well, I'm just glad you're still essential. Do we have any public comment? I don't have speaker slips, but anybody want to address the board? Okay, so we'll move right along to the consent calendar. Do I have any items that any of the directors would like to discuss or pull off?
Now, Mr. President, I'll just let you know, it was my month to review the claims. I found everything in order, and I appreciate the response to a couple of questions I had from the staff.
Great. So I'm assuming that you would recommend that we
I
approve?
recommend the approval.
Okay. I'd be happy to entertain a motion.
So moved. I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved by Director Michelson, seconded by Vice President Reynolds, excuse me, that we approve the consent calendar, and could you call the roll? Thanks.
Director Michelson?
Yes.
Vice President Reynolds?
Here.
Director Hanson?
Guys?
Director Feldman?
Yes.
President Cumberland?
Did you just
Can we clarify that a here is a yes vote? And my vote is yes. So
I didn't want to hold things up.
I think it's great.
Blasting it out quick.
But I didn't know if it was an HEAR or an HERE, or I don't know.
Oh, like here.
Yeah, I don't know.
That would count.
quickly?
Are there any meetings attended or director comments?
Yeah, I've got one. Actually, I was fortunate enough to attend the U.S. Water Alliance's One Water Leadership Conference in Los Angeles on September 24th. The U.S. Water Alliance is a group that combines water agencies, water treatment, public works, wastewater treatment, all state and local agencies. It's sort of a supra group designed to break across silos in the water industry, and this was probably about 100 to 150 attendees. Keynote speaker was the mayor of Los Angeles, Eric Garcetti. Talked about the challenges and the progress that LA has made in managing their resource. One of the things that was interesting is that even with their aggressive water use efficiency, 130 gallons per person per day is what they're using. Brisbane, Australia, over the last 5 years, dropped from 130 gallons per person per day to 90 down to 30. So the Australians are down at 30 now. Just kind of an example of where you could be from a water use efficiency size. It's pretty crazy. The other highlight for me was a colleague of mine, Jeff Sturba, who's the CEO of American Water, but was the CEO of Public Service New Mexico, an electric utility, and it was sort of, what does an electric guy know about water after a few years? A couple things that stuck out that I think would be worth remembering. His quote, "If we can drive efficiency, we create headroom to serve our customers better without rate increases." And if there's one thing that has defined my time here, I think that was it. He also highlighted sort of tiered rates. He talked about the opportunity cost of buying water rights, which may be a useful figure to know, that AmWater, it's about $1,100 to $1,500 per acre foot to access the incremental water right, which I think squares nicely with some of our capital projects that are currently on the books. And then there's a whole bunch of stuff on the water energy nexus. That was why I was there. I led a panel discussion on that. A lot of interesting things on the wastewater treatment side, using renewable energy. You know, we have a gravity-fed system. There are folks that are putting little in-conduit hydro propellers inside the gravity-fed system to recover energy from the flow of the water to take care of some of the auxiliary loads and shave that PG&E bill, which, as I know from this month, is quite large. So anyway, I'm going to hand a copy of some notes that I made for the benefit of the board, and have that probably put in the record at some level. But it's a great network, and I would encourage the district to look at aligning with it. It's relatively low dollar, but it's a great sort of broader water community thing. Last thing I'll say is I had a chance to talk with SFPUC's Deputy GM, Mike Carlin, and sort of thanked him on our behalf for the cooperation that we've had with the Stone Dam Pipeline and just the relationship between the two agencies. He said very explicitly to me, you go back and you tell those staff members at Coastside that they're doing a great job and we really enjoy working with them. So, David, on our behalf, take that. It's good stuff. I was very pleased to hear that. So that's
Thank
it.
you.
Thank you.
Other meetings attended?
Yeah, I did go to the Bosque meeting. I'll lighten up a little bit on SFPUC since Michael Carlin sent his love. He was not going to give us the raw water discount until I went over his head. And only because I went over his head did we get a raw water discount. He was not willing to give it to us. But he's a great guy. I have enjoyed working with him. That said, I'm not sure how long I was off of Bosque. You know,
4 years.
we were supposed to have been wrapping up the WISP by now, 2013. We got another 5 years to go. Not too happy about that. Michael Carlin is the de facto head of SFPUC, even though he's, vice president. The general managers are merely figureheads, and they rotate them through for political reasons. So Michael Carlin is certainly the contact guy. The WISP did lose their lead engineer. She took a much higher paying job with a multinational. So kind of disappointed to hear that. More turnover at SFPUC. I did learn the number. 41% of the WISP, the soft costs. 41%. That's high by industry standards. Soft costs include environmental, and that's probably the lion's share of that 41%. So we're paying. So when anyone wonders why our water from SFPUC is going up, it's the cost of doing business in the state of California. It's very, very expensive. Fortunately, during the recession, a lot of money was saved. Bids came in blowing engineering contracts. However, now the environment has changed. Cost of doing business is going up. However, with the money saved during the recession, it'll probably still come in, they're estimating, it'll still come in under budget. They did find another historical slide at Calaveras. So Calaveras is still the unknown on when that will really be complete and what the final dollar amount will be. But they were relatively optimistic it'll still come in at the original $4.6 billion. However, 5 years late. And that's the latest from Bosco. Oh, and there was a shout out to Glenn Reynolds, Director Glenn Reynolds from Alameda County Water District, from our friends at the chloramine people.
Oh, yeah.
You left a very big impression with that group, Glenn,
What's
I
that
must
gal's
say.
name? What's that gal's name?
I fled the county. Oh, my
We
goodness.
gave her your home phone number.
You're so kind.
Didn't realize there were warrants out for you.
Oh, yes. Yes, I met this woman.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Other meetings attended, or?
I went to the Cal Nevada Sacramento meeting, and I think the big thing that I took away was some of the talks on the legislature for funding the Schwarzenegger Delta bypass tunnel and sort of the crisis level of it. And it was interesting to hear the rhetoric and the conversation at the measure was passed but unfunded, not that that rings a theme today. But I was really taken aback at how concerned sort of a large group of people were feeling this is a crisis situation for California. We're involved because the Hetch Hetchy water system will be dragged into that as part of the picture, so we'll see. I kept my head down.
Watch out for
And you?
chloramines.
Yeah. The meetings you went to?
Oh, none. I've been, the only thing I've done is, I've been doing a little bit of environmental analysis in the Delta.
How'd that go?
It's going really well,
Sunburn
actually.
looks like it's clearing up.
Yeah, the Delta's good and beautiful, and the water's flowing freely, and if we just get rid of those beavers, we'd be in good shape. Yeah, so General business, Dave, if you will take it away, the quarterly financial review, please.
Okay. Like it or not, we finished the first quarter. Time marches on. We do a quarterly financial review. I think the bottom line of this financial review is that we're basically on target. The good news is the shortfall that we experienced in our water revenue in the first month of the quarter, we made up pretty handily in August and September, and I pointed out that our consumption was up 11% in August and 9% in September over last year, and our revenue, which reflects both our rate increase and the increased consumption, our revenues were up 18% and 16%. So that really helped us catch up in revenue. So revenue is right on target. In terms of operating expenses, everything looks pretty good. As I explained in the staff report, we tried to approximate a good first quarter year-to-date by adding in some of the year-end accruals. And if you can figure out the sentence I wrote to explain that, you're doing well. Looking back at the syntax, it was a little complicated, but I think it's accurate. I guess the only news and expenses is we're spending more than we budgeted on San Francisco water purchase, and that's because we produced a little bit less in July, quite a bit less in July than we expected to from Denniston. We thought we'd have some production from Denniston in the first quarter. We didn't have that, and that's the flip side of the good news on water sales. We're using more water from San Francisco. It's all coming from Crystal Springs. We just paid a $48,000 Pacific Gas and Electric bill. So one of the things that we've been focusing on is getting our Stone Dam, getting the issues with our Stone Dam pipeline resolved. There's quite a bit of water for us in Pillarcitos. So next week we'll be working with SFPUC to do a new test we devised. And this is another good example of SFPUC working very cooperatively with us. David Briggs, who's the head of all the water operations for SFPUC, and 3 of his staff came up and met us at Stone Dam Meter last Friday, and everybody had a lot of good ideas about how to make the most of kind of the limited hydraulic capacity, or the hydraulic head we have to work with there. And we think we've come up with a pretty cool way of, maybe if we could get 1,500 or 2,000 gallons a minute out of our temporary Stone Dam pipeline, that'd be great. So we've got a test we're going to do next week, which requires closing a valve that must be 100 years old. They're still trying to figure out whether that thing will close or not. But so we have been spending more on SFPUC water and the cost of pumping it, but so far we're in good shape. Any questions about the quarterly financials?
I think it looks great. Nice to see it in the black.
Yep.
So next item is the capital improvement program status, and I know you had a CIP group meeting, didn't you?
We met with the Facilities Committee.
Good.
Since last meeting, we've met with the Facilities Committee and with the Water Resources Committee. You'll hear about that in Kathleen's report a little bit later. I just thought I would, since we finished a quarter, I thought I'd start something a little bit new and give the capital improvement program, since it's where we spend a lot of our money, a little more visibility than it gets in the consent agenda. So I just thought I'd highlight some of these projects as we did with the Facilities Committee. We've got 2 major projects going right now, Avenue Cabrillo Phase 2 and El Granada Tank 2. Those both came in under budget, and our total commitment for those 2 projects is about $900,000. And those should both complete by the end of the year. Or
Is that date correct, 12/15?
12/15 for Avenue Cabrillo Phase 2. I meant December 15th. It should have been 12/15/13.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they've got 90 days.
I was nervous that was
Yeah.
going to start doing like the WISIP project.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've got 90 days. El Granada Tank 2 is extending out a little bit. That one will go longer. It's a very difficult project given the site constraints. A steep tiny site. If you've been up El Granada Boulevard and seen a very large tank sitting on its side up there, the contractor had a choice of using a bolted steel tank, which could be taken down in pieces to the back of the site where the temporary tank would be set up, or using this one-piece fiberglass tank. Well, it arrived there, and they can't figure out how to get it onto the pad they built for it down at the back corner of the site. It's big and heavy and would require a very large crane. Our local crane guy, I think, has stopped returning their calls. So they've been really scratching their heads about how to get this tank into position, and that's resulted in a delay.
Maybe we could get Sisyphus to roll it over.
Yeah.
They need something, yeah, they need, yeah, we'd like to be there when they do it. Hazen's tank replacement, Jim Teeter is designing that. We think we'll be able to get it going this year. We'll be back to the board sometime around March for awarding that contract. The Alves Tank Recoating Project, that's a project that's in this year's budget, as it has been in the budget for probably about 3 fiscal years. We keep pushing it forward because the project is complicated by the need to put in a temporary pump station to maintain pressure in the south part of the district. So that's going to require quite a bit of design. We're going to need a site somewhere around the fire station to locate this pump station. We're going to have to dig down to our 16-inch pipe and put in a bypass facility. So there's some complications to it. So that one keeps getting delayed, and Al's tank, other than some cosmetic rust, is in relatively decent shape.
Doesn't need an annular ring.
Its ring at the bottom is in pretty good shape. Denniston dredging is underway as we speak, or was today and yesterday.
How long will it go on?
It'll be done in a couple more days. Yeah,
Wednesday, Thursday.
Oh, so this week, okay.
Yeah, the mechanized part, Joe had the California Conservation Corps crew in there for a little over a week. They had estimated longer, but they were in for a little over a week. They had, 15 people maybe?
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
And they really did a great job of clearing, under Jim Steele's supervision, this path that now will reestablish the flow of the creek along a path that kind of winds through the tules. They left shade so that the tules won't grow back as fast. And what's supposed to happen is that the stream is supposed to cut a deeper channel, so we'll maintain a flow, a higher flow by our intakes. And with that little rain, we got some good channel cutting. So that looks like a successful project to be done pretty soon. And we're getting ready to start Denniston probably later this month. It's amazing, but even after 2 dry years, pretty good flow going down Denniston right now.
Wait till tomorrow.
And with the harvest of the upper Brussels sprout field, Dave Layak discontinues his diversion upstream. So, as more, he harvests about 12 acres a week. So the hot weather's required him to go back to some irrigation, but his use of the water will be winding down.
Great.
There'll be more for us. So that all looks good. Since the board approved Calcon's contract, we've gotten a number of projects going with them. I just listed some of those. So we feel like we're in pretty good shape first 3 months of the capital improvement program. Any questions about?
I don't remember where Hazen's tank is. Could you
It's
remind
up, it's above the intersection of Ferdinand and San Juan in El Granada.
Okay.
It's
It's
on
called-
the map, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's in
Joe could-
Lair Park there.
That's the really narrow,
So-
This is off Sterling.
yeah, the really narrow ridge way up
Mhm.
there.
And it's a small tank, but it's essential to provide high demand, some pressure and high demand flows for that, that relatively high elevation neighborhood.
The connections that are above that, do they maintain their own booster pumps?
There aren't any connections above that.
So
that-
they're on private wells, the couple houses that are above that?
We don't know of any
There are
above
none.
there.
Yeah, there's a couple houses up there.
They must be on wells then.
Seen them from the air.
Yeah, they must be on wells.
They weren't built with permits.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're on wells, and the higher areas of El Granada are served by our 3 El Granada tanks. We have a couple of pressure zones above El Granada Tank 1.
Thank you. Other questions about CIP?
No, just a comment. I think the presentation was, the extra highlight was really helpful. And on a quarterly basis, I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna try to do it on at least a quarterly basis and work on providing additional detail about it.
This is also
Capital
new
program.
too, isn't it? The tracking of legal and engineering.
Oh, we've been watching them like a hawk.
Yeah, I just don't remember a regular sheet in there.
Especially that legal tracking.
This is a model that MWSD has promised to use, right? I think to track their legal costs, didn't they agree to use us as a model?
You know, I would hate to speak for them. I have no idea. I don't know what they're attracted to. So moving right along, budget increase for Denison San Vicente Environmental Impact Report preparation. Take it away, please.
Okay, we haven't talked for a while about the Denison San Vicente project. A major element of that was the upgrade of the Denison treatment plant, which we've done. There are a number of other things in the works, a lot of which will depend on our environmental impact report. The environmental impact report is a requirement of the water rights process we're going through, and it supports our petition for extension of time, which we've talked about. So, in April 2011, the board awarded a contract for environmental impact report preparation to Analytical Environmental Services, AES. And the total estimated time and materials cost was $282,000. And that included $91,000 worth of subcontracts for steel biological consultant and balance hydrologics. All parties have been diligently, although not in all cases expeditiously, working on elements of the environmental impact report. And as I point out here, it became clear as we got into it that the issues were more complex than anybody expected, particularly in the area of hydrology. And part of the problem with hydrology is we have a limited set of actual gauging data for these streams, and therefore we need to build correlations to other streams and use other means which are scientifically valid to try to characterize a long-term flow record for Denison and San Vicente creeks, so we can say how much water we're going to divert from them. So I think it's mainly been the complexity of the hydrologic work that has extended this process. Now I won't go into all the details, but Balance Hydrologics, I think, has done a good job finally of estimating what flows are available, and the numbers will come out in our draft environmental impact report, which we expect to complete. It's largely complete now. We're working on some minor pieces of it. We expect that to be completed by sometime around the end of the year. And our the draft environmental impact report is then released to the public, and we get comments back. AES has used, because of this, because of having to address these additional issues, AES has used their budget, which was really only $190,000 after the sub-consultants. And they need some additional budget to complete this whole process. They basically have, there's not much work left in the preparation of the draft EIR. They estimated some while back that it would cost $41,000 to finish the draft, and I, within my authority, I said, well, you can have 30, and let's see if that finishes it, and they've gotten really close with the 30. The additional cost down the road will depend on how many comments we get on the draft. If we get a lot of comments and they require some complex analysis, it costs more, it's all time materials. If we get fewer, it'll cost less. Their estimate some while ago was that that cost would be around $25,000, and that there would also be some additional costs in meeting with regulatory agencies and so forth. I'm not sure if we'll really experience those. So what I'm requesting, we clearly need to finish this, and we need some additional funding. What I'm requesting is that the board authorize me to approve up to $100,000, including the $30,000 that I've already authorized. So there wouldn't be an increment. The increment from where we are today wouldn't be more than $70,000. And my approach is to authorize this, a task or two at a time, so that we don't just, sort of say, well, here's a big budget to work with. That I feel like we have a little bit better monitoring and control with that kind of approach. So what I'm recommending is that we say that the total cost of the EIR could, under this authorization, could go up to $382.
Other comments?
I was on the facilities committee that reviewed this, and we spent an hour and a half, 2 hours on it, and I learned a lot. And I came to the conclusion that as much as I don't like spending money, this is a sound investment for 2 hours worth of reasons.
Yeah.
That was the conclusion I came to.
Dave, if I'm reading this right, the 100,000, including the 30 that's been previously authorized, includes both the draft and the final?
Yes, this gets us all the way to certification.
Do we have reasonable confidence that's going to be enough? If we were to get a tremendous amount of interest in this?
I think it's a reasonable estimate at this point.
Mhm.
And we can always authorize more. There's this tendency to say, well, if we approve $200,000, then we're gonna use it. If we say there's kind of a stop sign or a yellow light or something at 100,000, I think that's useful for us. And there's nothing to stop us from authorizing
Yeah,
additional.
I mean, my experience on the energy side, I've seen very few of these actually come in on budget and on the original schedule, because the whole purpose of this is to find and address
Problems.
issues before they become issues. So, to the extent that there are reasons here, valid hydrogeological reasons for going back and rethinking, with an additional year's data or an additional year's activities, I agree with Dr. Reynolds. The option value of having access to San Vicente is so important to this district that, we need to do this. And I also think this is a good faith effort. If we're moving forward with the process and we, for reasons beyond our control, run out of time and need another extension, then the good faith effort that this entails, I think, will serve us better.
When I first came on this board, $100,000 was kind of a starting point for EIRs. Now, 500,000 is about the right number for an EIR, and that's in 12 years' time. So it's the cost of doing business. So 382, whether it gets us through, good point, gets us really through the question period, we can hope so. It depends on the scope and detail required to answer the questions that may be brought up. But this, unfortunately, is the cost of doing business, and it's within line.
Yeah, am I correct that you have another 100K in next year's budget?
Yes.
For this?
Yeah, I put,
On top of this 100, I mean, so,
Oh,
no, this is
okay.
the 100 that I put
So
in the
that's
capital
there.
budget for completion of the
Right.
Denniston.
so
EIR.
there is a reserve
That's
for
there.
next year
Okay.
in case the 100 is short in terms of the kind of discussions
Great.
for this thing. As far as the needing to do it, I guess it's a prereq, we call this, for doing everything else in Denniston.
We can't stop.
If we don't do this, then we don't do Denniston,
Yeah,
which
it's
is
stranded
still one of
investment.
the top priorities we have. So
Yeah.
there's really not much option other than to spend it wisely and in pieces, as you note, based on specific chunks of work that you manage going forward. And so, there's really no option but to get this behind us in some fashion as soon as possible and go forward from there.
So is there a motion?
So moved?
I'll second that.
So it's been moved by Director Hannigan, seconded by Director Michelson, that we authorize the general manager to spend an additional 100,000, of which 30,000 has already been committed, to try to accomplish this EIR. Could you call the roll, please?
Director Michelson?
Yes.
Vice President Reynolds?
Yes.
Director Hannigan?
Aye.
Director Feldman?
Yes.
President Coverdell?
Yes. Thank you very much. I know it's not much fun to have us look over these numbers, but we feel a real need to be sure that we're spending money wisely, as some of our other consultants could verify for us. Okay, so we want to talk about authorizing Stage 1 water shortage advisory. Is that going to be you or Kathleen?
Yeah, Kathleen has her own agenda item
Right.
tonight.
Look at how early you're getting to the podium.
Wanted to move her forward.
7:32.
No, it's a record.
Huh? Hey, I've been setting records all year.
Fast and efficient. So, 2 consecutive dry years has kind of escalated the district's need to plan for a 3rd dry year and a possible water shortage. So, less than normal precipitation has affected both our local watershed and also the water from our imported water from the regional water system, including Hetch Hetchy system. So after reviewing the district's water shortage contingency plan and meeting with the Water Resources Committee, staff believes that it is appropriate at this time to implement Stage 1, which we refer to as the Water Shortage Advisory. So in the Water Shortage Advisory stage, that's where district staff begins to prepare for the implementation of either voluntary or mandatory curtailment or rationing, however you want to refer to it, reduction in water use demand. And but at this time, staff is not recommending that we set a goal for reducing water. It's basically to help, we need this to help us begin preparing internally the district itself. And that would include updating the water shortage contingency plan, developing drought rates, and having to go through the whole 218 process and adopting those drought rates so that they are ready to be implemented if necessary, starting July 1st fiscal year. And also looking at changes that would be required in staffing, utility billing, and other procedures to meet any goals that we would have during periods of rationing. And we also anticipate that we will meet with the Water Resources Committee more often to keep them up to date on our activities and, of course, report to the board too on everything. So at this time, staff is recommending that the board authorize the implementation of Stage 1, the water shortage advisory of the water shortage contingency plan. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Do you have any general sense, like a person at the base use, what their increase in rates might look like during a mandatory rationing?
No, we don't, which is why we think it's very important to actually develop drought rates and to go through the whole public process and work through that. We know that during times of mandatory rationing from SFPUC, the penalties will be significant on us if we go over our allotment, and that would just have to be passed down to the customer. So that's why we think it's important to start now and to make sure that we can have a financial plan during these times when obviously water usage is going to go down, our revenue is going to go down, but we're going to be having, the potential of penalties or surcharges from San Francisco and also increased expenditures on our part. We're having to increase our outreach and with maybe actually having to hire extra temporary staff to help with things like meter reading and customer service.
So how many of the bulleted items in the staff report will be undertaken as a result of us moving to stage one? Because it wasn't clear in reading through that. Are we going to do these? Obviously, updating the contingency plan and developing the rates is one thing, but actually adopting the rates through the 218 process is a whole other matter. I mean, to me,
Yes.
that would signify a level of seriousness that would go beyond simply raising awareness that drought actions might be required.
It is our goal to go through the 218 process and have the rates approved by the board and through the public process so that they are ready. The first, the earliest we would have to implement them would be July 1st of 2014. But if not, then we know we would need them also in the future. So now is a good time to actually go through the exercise and develop drought rates since we do not have them. So we don't see any point in delaying it. It's something that the district needs to have.
So it's entirely possible we may go through the rate setting process and stir up whatever that stirs up and not ultimately implement these rates because they're not necessary this year.
Right, it is possible, but eventually we feel that, they'll be included in part of the water shortage contingency plan if we adopt them. And, they'll be in place ready at any time that we do need to.
And let's say that instead of it being this year, next year is the year where we have to implement the drought management. Would we have to review those rates and go through the 218 process again?
No, unless we made changes to, Patrick probably could answer this better than I could, but as long as we didn't make significant, changes to them, we shouldn't have to go through the 218 process again. So that's how, it's very important how we develop them, that we, that we do it in such a way that we can have some flexibility.
And then just one final question. What's the trigger that you're looking for that would take us from stage one to stage two?
Well, that's a good point. Stage one, we have the ability, it's the way it's defined now in our plan is anywhere from a shortage of 0 to 5%. So we could stay within stage one up to that, but if we needed to do any kind of voluntary or mandatory curtailment over that, I think that would trigger us going to the stage two.
So I'm just trying to put it into context. Does that mean, sort of we get all the way through January and we're well below average on the season, or kind of what would be the hydrological indicators that you would look at and say, okay, maybe we need to look at going to stage two?
I think by January, we will have a pretty good feeling whether or not we'll have to escalate it into a stage two. Basically, we'll see how, with the precipitation and the snowfall, is in the different watersheds. And we'll also get feedback from SFPUC.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments for?
SFPUC was to notify us by April? Was that what I recall from the subcommittee meeting?
Yes, they by April, but how they've done it in the past is, again, that we'll have a pretty good feeling by January.
Yeah, we just looking out the
And
window,
then
we'll get a good idea, yeah.
You can't turn the stuff on overnight,
Right.
so my understanding is by
But the
January.
formal notice would come by April. At that
Right.
point, we'd have a handle on, be it 10, 20, 30, whatever the cutback may be, which
Yeah.
would certainly put us into a secondary stage. Is that-
Right, and San Francisco would increase their outreach to their wholesale customers, I think, starting January, just from how they've handled it in the past. We probably would have extra meetings with them, and it would be monitored very closely.
But by April, we would have numbers, and then we could work backwards, and, what's it gonna take to operate this district?
By the end of April, yeah, but that doesn't give us a lot of time,
Right,
especially if you
right.
have to go through a
Yes.
218
Yeah,
notice.
yeah, so that's what I'm
Yeah.
getting to, so it's
Yeah.
gonna be, so hence we're laying out the groundwork now, because
Right.
it's gonna be crunch time once we get notified.
Yeah, I guess my hesitation is only the commitment to go all the way through the 218 process now,
Oh, right,
even
right.
though it might
With-
not turn out
Yeah,
to be
with an
necessary.
unknown, because with unknown cutback, we don't know
Yeah.
what the cutback is gonna
Yeah.
be.
So I'm a little hesitant to commit to that straight away. I have no problem doing the
Yeah.
investigative work and then determining, working back from our July date, what we would have to do. When's our go, no go? But I'm a little hesitant to just say, okay, absolutely go all the way through without knowing really what we're trying to accomplish.
How long does the 218 process take us from start to finish?
With the public hearing, is it 45 days about from
Yeah,
minimum?
if I can jump in. The 218 process includes both substantive requirements and procedural requirements. And the more straightforward is the procedural requirements that requires it requires a public hearing and providing notice at least 45 days in advance of that public hearing of the rates and the reason for the rates. There's a number of statutory requirements that need to be included in the notice. But before that, you need to meet the substantive requirements of 218, which is really to justify the rates. And usually that entails some sort of a rate study of some sort. And as Kathleen mentioned, it is kind of a long lead time process because there's a lot of unknowns, and we haven't done this before at this district. So we'll need to kind of work through that process. And some of the points that were raised earlier tonight about if you do it this year, but you don't need the drought rates this year, but might need it next year or the year after, the district may have to go through the 218 process again, depending on how the drought rates are set. So for example, if they're set at a set dollar amount, and then we increase our rates, and then the drought rates need to be increased because of the surcharge,
Yeah.
then it is an increase in the rates that we've already studied and noticed and adopted once, and that would require a new 218 process. We'll have to work through this and see if we can set the rates based on a percentage of the base rate. I mean, there's a variety of things that we would need to look at and evaluate, and so, and that's gonna take some time.
So, to be clear, will this board have an opportunity to vote on whether to go through the 218 process? Not the rate study, but the 218. Do we have to take an affirmative action at some point at a future meeting? Or are we in effect doing that tonight?
No, you are not doing it tonight.
Okay.
The board would need to take action to set the public hearing, the date for the public hearing. It would be the same process you would follow.
That we
in-
used before.
In using your normal rate increases.
Mhm.
So the board would take action to set the date of the public hearing and to authorize the issuance of the notice, the sending out the notice 45 days in advance, because that notice needs to specify what those rates will be. So the board needs to take that action.
And do we have a reasonable confidence that the rate study will be completed before we get to that vote?
Oh, with Kathleen at the helm, no problem.
Has to be.
It has to be.
Problem,
yeah.
yeah.
Kathleen?
I mean, do we have enough time between now and whenever that drop dead date is? If
Oh,
it's
yeah.
45 days minus July 1, seems like that would be reasonable, but I just
Yeah.
want to confirm that.
Because we're not looking to raise the rates until July, right?
Right,
Yeah,
the
so I mean,
earliest.
It would
Basically-
go into effect July 1st if there's a
Yeah,
water
But we have,
cutback.
like 8 months to.
Yep.
But there isn't, and we have to look at some procedural questions since we haven't done this before about, if we do it once, would we be required to do it again? We haven't really worked through that, but we think it will take a month to find a consultant, probably 3 months to produce the study, bring it back to the board, have the board contemplate it, another 2 months to go through the 218 process. So working back from July, we we
We're
need
there.
to start now. With regard to, are we going to do all these bullets? Oh, we will have a drought. It isn't a matter of if we will, it's a matter of when. It could come July 1st. There's nothing in our water supply agreement with SFPUC that precludes their declaring a shortage at any time that they feel it's necessary for the protection of the supply and the regional water system and its customers. So there isn't anything that says they couldn't declare a shortage that takes effect October 1st. We don't think that the fact that we always have this tendency to say, this is sort of the trap we always fall into. We always have this tendency to say, well, maybe it won't happen, we won't have to do it, let's put it off a little longer. But we feel like if it were to happen, it would be much better for the district and its customers if we have as much of the preparation in place as we're able to accomplish over the next few months. And there are significant parts of it that we will not be able to accomplish by next July, including getting our billing system ready to accommodate the changes in billing that will be necessary. That if we were to go into curtailment July 1st, we will be scrambling to work around that issue. But that's another thing that we're working on now, working on today, actually. So we're nervous. It's our job to be nervous about the possibility of drought because, when we talk about the impact of lower water use, on July 1st, we want our customers to be able to cut back whatever it is, up to 20%. So, helping them to do that and then dealing with the consequences of an immediate 20% drop in revenue if we don't have the rates in place. And those are things that we worry about, so.
Yes, Director
Okay,
Feldman.
so, the Water Resource Committee was, certainly wasn't a happy meeting, I'll say that. But it's not a surprise, we've been talking about this for some years and haven't really gotten to the nub of this until recently, because there's been nagging going on about shouldn't we be doing something, which may not be in the, at the end of day, good news, but it's the only news we're gonna have at some point. So, this is a template to say, here are the things that are on the table, we need to do this. Kathleen's done a good job, she's got a lot of stuff, underpinnings, there's gonna be some needed for help to do this, and some consulting involved, et cetera, et cetera. We understand all that, because there's no way to do a lot of this work without some help, it's a big job. One of the key factors here also is listed as the advising the public, informing the public that we're at this stage, or we've authorized this, and making sure they're starting to be aware of the fact that this could happen. And it's not too soon to start talking the talk and communicating this, and I think that's very important. It hasn't been spelled out, but it's one of the bullets that's not quite shown, right? It's called communicating with the public and telling them what's going to happen, and whatever way, emails and whatever you choose to
Yeah.
do.
Well, at
In
this
a
time.
in a way that's at least giving them an insight into the things that are going on.
Yeah, I think it's very important we do outreach, and it's going to be tricky since we're not specifically asking for a cutback,
Right.
like, saying please cut back, 10 gallons a day. So the message will have to be crafted
Right.
carefully without putting people in a panic or crying wolf.
No,
or,
I appreciate that.
but definitely.
We don't want our customers to cut back now.
No. Well, just, we're
want the
authorizing this
revenue.
we're authorizing the Stage 1 advisory to begin to look at this going forward and come up with an approach if this in fact becomes reality. I don't know what you can tell them.
The last time we went through this exercise was in 2007, 2008. And there've been dramatic changes in our pattern of water use since that time that have sort of reduced the risks for the district and our customers. Our customers have really increased their efficiency and lowered their use of water from on the order of 30% since 2007. So that means we have a little more room, within our supply to work with a water shortage situation. So it isn't, I think all of the utilities and SFPUC, don't feel as panicked as we did in early 2008, when, the last time that this message, we're having a drought message, got really intense. Because, we just come off the peak year ever of water production for CCWD, and we saw it going up, and then the Great Recession hit, and
Yeah, you had those
So-
off-the-chart charts up on the
Right,
wall, I remember that.
right.
When were you actually hired here by the district?
March of 2007.
Yeah, so
You came right out of
I
it.
give her full credit for
Right.
causing the customers in our district to think more wisely about water.
Yep.
We have a wonderful water resources person, and she's done a marvelous job. I don't have any doubt in the quality of what will be generated in the next month or so. And so I enthusiastically support it, and I think it's just great that you're taking a proactive approach. And I hate worst-case scenario, lifestyle, but it's intelligent to know, and so I think you guys are gonna do a great job.
couple
Do we
more-
need a motion to go to the water shortage number 2, or number 1?
So moved, and just a couple of comments. One, I just checked the NOAA prediction for the weather for the season out to 90 days and beyond, above normal temperature and normal precipitation, so we've got hopefully some hope there. The second thing is, I noticed changes in the billing systems are one of those things that's on the agenda. Just, let's keep an eye towards making sure that we can build in some flexibility for rate design even in non-drought periods. Because I know this board has talked about that as a longer-term strategy. And so as we're thinking about changes for drought purposes, it might be prudent to think, okay, how might this also be a way to investigate some possibilities for a longer-term set of changes?
Yes,
I'd be
definitely.
interested in that. So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Director Hannigan, seconded by Vice President Reynolds, that we enter into water shortage stage 1. Is that advisory stage 1? Are there other comments, or?
Shouldn't there be a color associated with this?
Blue.
I do have colors in the water source containers. It goes from like yellow to deep red.
Kind of brings back the whole Homeland Security
Yes,
thing.
that's
We
where
wanna
I was
leave
going,
that
yes.
aside, since we've been on orange for forever.
Yeah, I don't want to be associated with terrorism in any way, shape, or color.
Some people are very visual. We need to call.
So are there other comments, or could you call for the vote, please?
Director Michelson?
Yes.
Vice
Yes.
President Reynolds? Director Hannigan?
Yes.
Director Feldman?
Yes.
And President Coverdell?
Yes. And Kathleen, while you're up there, would you like to have your water resources report continue, or are there other things to add?
No, I'll leave it up to you if you want. I can go straight to my other report.
Well, that's what I thought, and then you could cruise out of
Make
here at
Joe
like 8
wait for.
o'clock.
That's all right.
Joe's good. He had a week or a month off.
Okay.
Rested, refreshed.
So this report, my water resources report, is obviously just informational. And I gave an update, so last month I gave an update on the washer rebate program for fiscal year 2013. And this is just an update for the residential toilet rebate for fiscal year 2013. So it just gives you some summary information of the number of rebates that we received, the number of toilets we rebated, the inspections, the cost of the rebate program, including fees that we pay to BOSCA to help for the administration of the program and for some outreach materials. And then an estimate for the annual water savings. So we, almost an acre foot annually savings from fiscal year 2013.
Great. Congratulations.
So, yeah, so our customers are, even in, constantly doing their best to install water efficient fixtures and appliances, so that's a good thing. The other, I gave an update on the Pillar Cedars Creek Integrated Watershed Management Plan. We haven't heard about that for a while. So we we're helping fund the stream gauge here at Lower Pillarcitos Creek near Highway 1, and also we're paying the San Mateo RCD to help manage the plan and the projects. And that expired, and we don't have a new funding agreement in place yet. So we're just waiting to hear from the RCD so we can to work on that. And I also reported that the district is a signatory, a member of the California Urban Water Conservation Council, and we completed some more reporting on the best management practices. So that was complete. It was a little delayed because they just created a new database so we can do all the reporting online. And it was a little delayed, so it kind of delayed our reporting, but we did get that complete. And also an update on BOSCA's project for regional demand and conservation projections. And hopefully this project will help us with our 2015 urban water management plan. So we're working with BOSCA on that also.
Great.
So if you have any questions,
Thank you very much. You're doing a great job, and we'll look forward to hearing your suggestions for stage 1 of the water advisory. Could I take a 5-minute recess? Does that work for everybody? Thank you.
Sure. They're out of candy still in the front.
I know, I'm going there, right to the candy.
Oh, green apples.
No, they're out.